TF2 is a good game, of course, but a common idea is that TF2 is perfect. But is it though? Like, a lot of the times these people point to the characters being fleshed out or the wide range of weapon selection, as well as the addictive movements such as rocket jumping or even just running a scout. However, there are some issues in TF2 that I believe make enough of an impact to suggest that TF2 is not perfect. So before I say what those issues are, I want to address two things. Firstly, I will not be talking about the bot problem in TF2. Although it certainly affects the game, it only hurts casual servers, not community ones. Also, that isn't TF2's fault, it's Valve's fault for not updating the game enough to support it with anti-cheat or better bot finding algorithms. Secondly, I don't want to talk about the community problems TF2 has. The community isn't perfect, obviously, and the things that they say and do may be questionable, but that isn't TF2 as a game's fault. They're just weird. There's no beating around the bush. Some people in a fandom or a large community will be cringy and do odd things. I'm only focusing on TF2 at its core. The games means there'll be no mention to things like comics, merchandise, community, or whatever the developers do. TF2 does not introduce any new player to the game. Now what do I mean by this? What I'm saying is that there's no real introduction for any of the 9 classes. Take Soldier for example, probably the most played class in TF2, ahead of Sniper. When a newbie joins for the first game, picks Soldier, they're just thrown into a match straight away. And there's no explanation to what they're supposed to do as a class, how they're supposed to do it, and there's no teaching of the weapons they have. Now of course the weapons Soldier has aren't too complex, like a shotgun is just aim and shoot really, and a melee shovel is the same thing. But more complex classes, such as Spy, can just confuse and frustrate the newbie. Also, one of Soldier's primary features, rocket jumping, is just not talked about at the start. The only method for getting advice for classes is the little tips in the loading screen, or stat screen, whatever. Not only are these vague as hell, they're also unorganized as hell. Not only does this mean you have to click through tips for other classes, but it also means you have to click through items the player might not even have. Not explaining anything to a new player, like I said before, just pisses them off whenever they lose, because they have no idea why they lost. They have no idea how to better themselves, and unless they search it up on YouTube, which a lot of them might not, they're gonna struggle a lot. On June 16th, 2020, a patch was released into TF2. This patch heavily limited what free-to-players could do in the game. Free-to-players were already pretty nerfed compared to premium users, so this change must have been big to have any major effect. And to be honest, it really was major. Free-to-players lost the ability to communicate in-game. Now not being able to chat and talk through the in-game chat box isn't that big of a deal. It sucks, but it's livable. What really killed free-to-players was the loss of voice commands. For those unaware, hitting Z, X and C, assuming your hotkeys aren't edited, will open up a list of voice commands you can use. These are utility options to help your team, such as calling out a spy, telling your team when to push, or telling an engineer to actually do something useful. Valve did this to fix the bot problem in TF2. Not only has the bot problem been going on for this long, but you might be thinking, Sammy, I thought you weren't going to mention the bot problem because it's not TF2's fault. Well, bots and bug patches weren't planned for TF2, like, at all. But communication between teammates definitely was. It's super important in class-based shooters, not only TF2, but things such as Valorant, Overwatch, Paladins, etc, etc. So straight up removing it is a huge disadvantage, not only for the free-to-play, but for the whole team really. Now you might be thinking, well, can't the free-to-play just play community servers? You don't have the restriction there. But the issue with that is, 1. Community servers do not add experience to a player's account. So if I play a full day on an Uncletopia server or a Skial server, I'll get nothing out of it, experience-wise. 2. Contracts can't be completed in community servers either. As a free-to-play, you can't trade, so one of the main ways of getting items is through contracts. But if they just play community servers, then they can't complete the contract because it doesn't count for anything, so they don't get the item. Limiting TF2's vast weapon selection and combinations through random drops can quickly make the game stale, especially if you're stuck using stock. A lot of the time you'll get an item for a class that you don't even play. This isn't the end of it either. As I said before, free-to-players can't trade, so the huge economy TF2 has brewing just doesn't exist to them. Free-to-players are also limited to crafting, as they can't craft hats, so have fun with the givers I suppose. Also, you need 2 items of the same class to create a scrap metal, so it's going to be hard to find resources to craft. Now obviously free-to-players can't be the same value as premium users, as in whoever bought the game before 2011 would have been scammed. But limiting free-to-players from one of the most important game mechanics of FPS games in general, as well as limiting the rate of getting new items to spicing up gameplay, is a harsh blow if you ask me. Lastly, TF2 is old, released in 2007 old, which is actually older than me. Now before you start commenting, old is gold, I want to address why this is an issue. Firstly, that phrase only applies to movie remakes, and secondly, TF2 being not only old, but not updated frequently is a big problem aesthetically. Many of the textures, models, designs and maps of TF2 are either ugly or low quality. You can say that this is TF2's art style, but how far are you going to go until you've crossed the line between art style and just being bad? This is more subjective, I know, but I've heard people use it as a legitimate reason not to play TF2. Do I agree? Not necessarily, but it isn't outlandish or anything. The default settings in TF2, such as its default FOV, model size, and even TF2 basics such as hit sounds and auto heal for medic, are all just lacking. It's all possible to change these of course, but for a newbie that doesn't know the game enough yet, or someone who is used to default presets in other games, it may not be apparent to them that they're actually at a huge disadvantage. There are lots of videos on YouTube that talk about this issue as well, and I think they know a little bit more than I do, so I'll just link a few videos in the description below that you can watch. So what does this all mean? What I'm trying to get across is that TF2, in its current state, is not good for new players. It's often hard to get into, confusing to understand certain mechanics, and the player is just straight up at a disadvantage until they either play for a premium account or research online for configs to smoothen up gameplay. A lot of these issues don't directly address older players, as they've probably dealt with them beforehand, but trying to introduce a friend to TF2 nowadays is a difficult task. Even someone like me, who hasn't been playing for very long, I'm still trying to get my head around optimized settings and console commands. Because you know, that's normal stuff that everyone should know about. There are obviously more problems in TF2 that have an effect as well, such as the previously mentioned bot problem, as well as other things such as decals and sprays. I'm gonna link a few more videos about them as well, because for my standards, this video is getting longer and longer, and also those are community problems and not a part of TF2's core. Anyways, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video.